Okay, we're recording now. Hello, boys and girls, cats and dogs. We are an inclusive channel around here. So, look who I have with me. The infamous Charles Gandy. He is extremely well known in knitting circles and has a very long list of accomplishments. But, Charles, I can only let you tell us about all of those accomplishments. So, have at it.
Oh gosh, David, how are you? Thanks for having me here. I feel a little awkward being with you. I'm not a crocheter. I can crochet a chain stitch or a single crochet to go around a garment or something, but I'm certainly not a crocheter. But I can knit. I started knitting when I was 4 years old. I'm now 70, almost 73, so figure that out, a long time. My mother had a small yarn shop way back in the 50s, and I learned to knit. I don't remember learning. I just remember going to the first grade and finding out that everybody didn't knit, especially the little boys. But luckily, my father supported me and my mother supported me. And people said to me, "Well, weren't you bullied?" And I said, "No, I don't remember being bullied. I guess in order to be bullied, it has to be effective." And I was proud that I could knit. So I guess if I was bullied, it went on for a couple of weeks, and then when the bullies realized it wasn't going to work, they stopped. I started on Saturdays in my mother's shop. I would teach the young kids how to knit, which was really smart on my mother's part, wasn't it? Because the mothers were in there buying yarn while I was while I was babysitting those kids. I designed my first sweater when I was 7. I still have that sweater somewhere. And if I do say so myself, it was rather clever. You know, yarn shops buy yarns in packages of 10, and it takes 7 or 8 to make a sweater. So invariably, they'll have 1 or 2 skeins of a dye-lot left over. And so that's always where the profit is. So I designed this sweater to use up those odds and ends of skeins. The sweater, actually was a vest, and it buttoned down the front and it buttoned down the back. So all you had to do was to knit half of a garment, and then you could make 10 half garments, and then you can mix and match and put them together. So if I do say so myself, I thought it was pretty clever. I probably need to find it in my storeroom and write up the pattern and put it on Ravelry or something. Might be kind of fun.
Wow.
Anyway, I went on to Auburn University, where I studied in the School of Architecture, and I got a degree in interior design. And for 40 years, I had a very successful design business, but I continued to work in fiber. I had looms and I did needlepoint, and certainly I knitted all along. But when 911 hit, it kind of slapped me in the face, and I thought, I don't have to do this anymore. So in 2002, I left my very successful business and I started just traveling around the world. I've been very lucky. I've been to all 7 continents in over 140 countries, and I knitted all the way. So that was great fun. I also, during that time, found out about a contest called Think Outside the Socks, which I thought was a very clever name. There were 6 prizes for that contest. I entered along with people from all over the world, and unbelievably, I won 2 of the 6 prizes in that contest. And so, one of the judges for that contest was a famous knitter who is unfortunately no longer with us, but her name is Kat Bourdie. And Kat was the judge for that contest. She came to Atlanta, where I was living at the time, and did a workshop. And she came up to me at a break and said, "I want to tell you about this retreat that I offer." She said, "I have a thing I call my visionary retreat, where I ask knitters to come and sit with me up in Friday Harbor off the coast of Washington, Seattle." And she said, then I help people, I mentor them to publish their own work. She said, "I've decided that I want to do an all men's retreat. Would you be interested in coming?" Well, duh, sure. Well, I thought she was asking me to come, right? Wrong. She was asking me to apply to come. She only had slot for 10 people. And there were 40 men from around the world that applied for this thing, and luckily I was one of them. She asked us to write a series of essays about what we were going to do. She asked us to answer a battery of questions. And I remember the last question she asked was, what are you're going to be in a room with 10 other or 9 other talented men knitters. 3 weeks after we leave, what are we going to remember about your contribution to our week? Well, I thought that's a pretty loaded question, but apparently I answered it correctly because she asked me to come. And then out of that came my book. Here's a copy of it, if I can get it in the. It's called The Embellished Sock, Knitted Art for the Foot. And included in that were the two socks that I won the prize for. One of them was called Dread Socks, which it's hard to get it in the camera. Here it is. It has 80 I cords at the top of the sock, and it was sponsored by a company called Regia, which does self-striping yarn out of Germany. This particular sock was, and they wanted a sock that a man could wear with sandals. Well, I think you could wear this crazy sock with sandals. So that was one of the winners, and the other winner in it was a sock that I call Snake in the Grass, and it is it's a tabby toed sock in
wow.
that it goes over a flip flop, and you can see that the head of the snake rests on top of the thongs of the flip flop, and then there are grass coming out of the sock. So that was 2 of them. I have about 18 or 20 patterns in this sock, including the one on the front is called Pebbles, which is a sock filled with baubles. And anyway, this has been out for, I don't know, 7 or 8, maybe 10 years, and it's been a lot of fun. In the meantime, after doing all of that, I learned about the TKGA, the Knitting Guild Association's Master Hand Knitting Program, which is a 3-level program to certify you as a really qualified, quote unquote, master knitter. So I did that, and I think it was 2010 that I finished that program. I was the second man to do it. There was another guy. I'm sorry that I wasn't the first. I'm that competitive. But anyway, I was the second guy. Now there are a number of us guys around the world. There are only about 300 or 350 master knitters all over the world. So I feel very privileged to have that designation. And even though I'd been knitting all those decades, going through that program really helped me to clarify and quantify, if that's the right word, my knitting. I learned a lot of things that I wasn't doing quite right and how I can make things better. And I learned that every stitch counts, and that anyway, it was just a very good program for me. And now I teach all over the world and have a good time trying to share what I've learned with other people. So I've rambled too much here.
No, not at all. I mean, you are so wonderful to listen to and so charming that I could sit here and listen to you talk for hours and hours. So the master knitter sounds interesting. I really need to look into. I think the Crochet Guild of America has that sort of a program for crocheters, and I need to look into that.
Yes, I think they do have that. I don't, as I say, I don't crochet, so I don't really know much of the details. But I can tell you that the master's program is really a good thing. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's not an easy thing necessarily to get through. I'll tell you a funny story about that. It's 3 levels. And you work a series of swatches, you answer questions about those swatches, you make a project of some kind, you write reports, and then you submit it all in a big, thick binder. Well, I did my first level, and I don't know how long it took me, but since I was retired, I pretty much spent all day, every day doing it. So it didn't take me quite as long as it might other people. But I sent it off for the reviewers to review, and then several weeks later, I get back this letter saying that, I was just a fabulous knitter, and blah, 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 how good I was. And would I resubmit swatch number 2 or 3? And would I re-answer question number 6? So I did those things and I sent it off. And 2 or 3 days later, I got back a thing. Oh, congratulations, you've passed level 1. You may now go on to level 2. Well, of course, because I sailed through that first level, my head was about as big as a huge air balloon. And I just was full of myself. So I sat down and got busy and I did the second level. Well, I don't know how long it took me to do that, but I sent it off. And after a few weeks, the letter came back, and it was, instead of 1 page long with a few little odds and ends for me to redo, it was 15 pages, single spaced. Yes, I couldn't believe it. Here I am with God's gift to the world of knitting, and I'm getting a 15-page reject letter. How dare them? At first, I thought, forget this. I lived on a lake at that time, and I thought, I'm just going to take this thing and throw it in the lake and be done with it. But after 2 or 3 days, I sat down and reread their comments. And so I thought, okay, I'll redo it. So I redid it, sent it off. And a few days after I sent it off, the second reject letter came. It was 9 pages long.
Well, at least they were getting shorter.
So I had improved. And by this time, I was mad because I thought, to heck with these people. So I buckled down and I sent it off again. And this time they passed me. I don't know whether the reviewer at that time was just sick of me or what, but they passed me. So then I started the third level. And Arinda Holliday is the chairman of TKGA. And as it turned out, she was assigned me to be my co-chair on this thing and the final reviewer. Now, there are 4 people that review it, but you only hear from the chairperson that summarizes everybody else's comments. So about midway through the review process, I'd sent the thing in. About midway through the review process, Arinda called me and she said, we want you to be on the committee, the review committee. And I said, well, that's kind of weird. I haven't even passed level 3. And she said, you will. Apparently, I had improved so much that everybody was as impressed with my third level as they were unimpressed with my second level. So I love telling that story, that if you get a 15, I think I hold the record for reject letters, but just don't give up. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So anyway.
Well, if that happens to me when I apply to the Crochet Guild of America, then I'll call you.
Well,
for encouragement.
I can't help you a bit with the crochet. I can just pat you on the back and say, this will be okay. So,
well, you're very good at doing that.
Yes, good.
So yeah, so for those not in the know, Charles and I met at this wonderful men's yarn retreat. It was actually called a men's knitting retreat, and I think I was the only one there who only crochets.
No, I don't think so, but maybe so. I know we have another person that you've interviewed, Curtis Rogers, who's been on your show before.
I love Curtis.
Yeah, he only crochets, but he wasn't able to come this time. So
I was very sorry because I've never met him in person. This was actually, even though I've also interviewed Rusty, but this was my first time meeting him in person.
Yes,
and yeah.
Well, it was a retreat, and it always is. This was our 10th year. It would have been our 11th if we hadn't had the pandemic and had to cancel last year. But so I kind of, with Rusty, who organized, I said, this is 10 and a half years, maybe. But
exactly.
It was fun, wasn't it?
It was lovely. It was lovely. I want to go back, definitely. And by golly, I'm going to offer some more crochet content next year.
Well, you did a lot of nice things. I mean, we saw it. So congratulations on what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I wasn't there for the show and tell, but I posted some things in the Facebook group, and I was flashing pictures, among other things, at people all the time to show my stuff. And I was also working on things while we were there. In fact, I had a little tension thing going on in my left hand because I was just crocheting so much. But
well, I saw you got some of the guys to model for you. That was smart, yeah.
Yeah, I actually I had that in mind when I headed up there because, photography is not my long suit, um, and I only have one mannequin at home, and it's for menswear. The shoulders are a little too narrow, and it has boobs.
Right. So it's better to not do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I don't consider myself a good model, but having Barry model my sweaters,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
my
You
God.
look good in them. Yeah.
I mean, he looks good in anything.
Exactly.
So, um, anyway, I was enthralled by all of the stories that you told, even though I teased you about them. um, because you have had so many life adventures. But you also were teaching classes there. I mean, one of them was this term that I can't say. I
Kumihimo. Kumihimo.
Okay, because we were pronouncing it a different way while we were up there.
But it is Kumihimo. It's spelled Kumihimo. It is an antique Japanese braiding technique, and luckily, it was for years. It was done with cords over like a stool kind of apparatus that has a hole in the middle of it, and you wrap different cords around in different places, and you have weights on those cords, and you twist this one over that one, and this one over this one. I have one of those stools. I can't pronounce the name of it, but I have one. But it's clumsy and it's a little awkward because those cords get sliding and they mess up. But somebody a couple, 5 or 6 or 10 years ago invented a small 6-inch disc that's a foam disc that has slots in it. So you can put those cords in numbered slots, and it's much easier to keep up with what you're doing. So did you take the class? I can't remember. Did
I
you?
did not, but I saw some of the things that people created, and they were really impressive just
Oh, yeah.
from
Yeah.
from like 1 hour of instruction.
Well, it's really easy to learn. I got a new book that I just got like 2 days before the retreat that has 50 different braids in it. So I mean, it's just endless what you can do with this, and based on what chord you use and what rhythm, if that's the best way to say it, what movement you do, you can just create everything from round, huge, beautiful spirals to flat braids to zigzag braids to all kinds of things. So, and I've had a lot of comments from the guys that took it that they think that maybe they're going to really do a lot with it. So I look forward to seeing what people create.
Yeah, yeah, there were guys who were saying they had found a new addiction.
But if you just Google Kumihimo, Kuhihimo, Kumihimo, you'll find that there are tons of materials on there, and it's easy to get started. It's not expensive to get started, and so do it. I think you'll like it, and it would be good for it's good for lanyards, it's good for bracelets and necklaces, but for knitting and crocheting, I think it could also make a beautiful frog. If you needed a closure for your garment, you could the old frog.
Like a drawstring sort of thing.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you could attach it in circles, or make knots out of it, and then have a very fancy thing. I also attach some of it to the edge of knitting to be like
Mhm.
braiding or cording, like a Chanel suit has that nice rope kind of thing going around it. So there are lots of uses for it. So try it out; it's fun.
I
Kumi
will
Kumihimo.
I will put the word in the description box
Okay.
because I mean I can't spell it either. So and I don't know that any of us ever got the spelling right while we were there.
Well, but Rusty misprinted it, but it is Kuhimiho, Kumihimo. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So then, since being or certified as a master knitter, what kind of privileges does that give you?
Oh, well, I don't know if it gives me any kind of privilege. It may give me a little credential, if you will. I teach a lot, as I said, and my resume starts out by saying Charles Gandy, comma, a TKGA master knitter. I mean, I think it just verifies, is that the right word, that I know what I'm doing. And I think I did it partially because I wanted to learn and I wanted to clarify what I knew about knitting, but also I think being a male in a predominantly female craft, I really wanted to get that credential so I could say to people that were naysayers, well, no, I really do know what I'm talking about. So I don't know that it offers any privilege other than it offers maybe confidence. It gives me confidence in what I know, and it also gives me a little bit of credential for those that don't know me. So it's been a good thing. But mainly the reason I did it was to learn, and I did learn a lot, just little things. But those little things start to mount up to. I like to say that I want my knitting to be handmade and not homemade, and I think that the finesse that I learned with through the master's program allows my work to indeed be handmade and not homemade. So that's important to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that sounds great. So then your teaching, that's taken you all over the world, right?
Literally all over the world. A couple of years ago, I spent 8 weeks in New Zealand, where I was teaching and traveling all over. New Zealand, of course, used to be known for all their sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Since the wool market, or since the invent of so many man-made fibers, the wool market is down, so they don't have as many sheep as they used to. But knitting is still important there, and I was invited to come and to be a keynote. They call it a tutor there instead of a teacher, a tutor. There's a big conference that happens in August every year, which is their winter months, the end of, and it's called Knit August Nights, and it's put on by a woman named Marie Buski. Marie owns one of the last mills in all of New Zealand, so she's a really gregarious woman, and she has a company. Her mill is called Skeins, Skei capital NZ. I think it's a very clever branding thing because they're making yarn in New Zealand, and so Skeins is spelled Skei capital N capital Z. So anyway, she has this Knit August Nights, and she has, there are only 4 million people in all of New Zealand, and 500 of them come to this annual conference that she has. So I spent 3 or 4 or 5 days teaching or tutoring with her conference, and then I spent the next 8 weeks traveling all over New Zealand, both the Upper Island and the Lower Island, the North Island and South Island, teaching and lecturing and just traveling. So it was a great experience. But I've taught all over the United States at various conferences and retreats, and that one of the things that I enjoy the most is every year I'm privileged to be asked to teach at the John C. Campbell Folk School. And if you don't, or your viewers don't know about the John C. Campbell, like Campbell soup, it's in Brasstown, North Carolina, which is close to Murphy, North Carolina. It's a 95 or 100-year-old campus, and they teach all kinds of traditional crafts. They have 20 to 25 classes every week, 50 weeks a year. There are over 600 instructors that come from all over the world. And I teach a class there in the spring called Beyond the Basics. And it's a week-long class where, unlike most of the classes there where the students come out with some kind of a finished product, in my class, they come out with a finished notebook, and it's like a private reference book. The first day I teach various cast-ons and bind-offs. The second day I teach various increases and decreases. Then I do a basic lace. I do a basic cable. I do some finishing and embellishing. And anyway, they end up doing tiny little swatches with individual worksheets. And by the time they leave, they've got a notebook 3 inches thick filled with all this wonderful resource material and whatever. It's a very popular class, and I enjoy doing it.
That sounds wonderful. I would like to take such a class for crochet, and I would like to be able to teach it as well.
Well, check out John C. Campbell. They're always interested in finding new instructors. You can Google it, John C. Campbell Folk School. It's with as many teachers as they have, you have to, you have to be careful about getting in as a teacher, but teachers are always coming and going too. and they teach everything from crochet to cooking to basket making to puppet. One thing I do is when I teach there, I get to take a class, and I always like to take a class in a discipline that I have never done. So, for instance, a year or so ago, I took a puppet class where I made 2 puppets from a instructor that worked with Jim Henson for many years. So,
Oh, wow.
so it was great fun. But they do wood turning and woodworking and a lot of music classes. I mean, there's a lot of a lot of traditional Appalachian music. So there are a lot of
Oh, I
uh,
love that stuff. Because,
yeah,
my background is singing. So,
right, right. Well, there are lots of you would enjoy it from all those traditional Appalachian songs. A lot of dancing. They do a lot of traditional dances. So it's a great place. Check it out online. They have a wonderful catalog online. John C. Campbell, folks.
I was not aware of that. I'm glad that you told me about it.
Yeah.
It sounds great. Now, you remind me also, you were talking about artwork that you do with your knitting. Tell us more about that.
I had an exhibit a couple of years ago at a museum where I did 26, I think it was 26 or 28 sculptural socks. They were never to be worn. They were permanently mounted on sock mannequins. It was at this museum, and I think I sent you some photographs of
You did, yes.
1 or 2 of those. But that was at the Basca Museum. I have an exhibit that was called Beyond the Sock, Knitted Art by Me. And it was a wonderful exhibit. And the museum was very pleased, I think. It was up for 4 or 5 months, and I enjoyed going up and giving tours and lectures and that kind of thing for that. I have an exhibit coming up in March in Atlanta at a gallery, and that show is going to be called Hidden Faces, Knitted Mask. And these are, I think I showed a few of them at the retreat, but I don't want to show them today because I'm still in process of getting that pulled together. But it'll be 30 to 40 of these sculptural hidden faces. They're on a head mannequin, so the knitted piece covers it completely, so the face is hidden. But then I'm doing all kinds of embellishments and stuff on top of it.
So it's sort of like this kind of a wig head with
exactly
artwork over it. Yeah.
right, but you don't see the wig head at all. You just see that's the hidden part, and then all of these other things I'm putting on it will.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I mean, it was clear you were in the process and figuring out what you were going to do, but I was impressed with what you were doing while we were there.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to see that come together. I still like to create socks that are wearable. Here's one. I wore these at the retreat. You may have seen them, but this gets back to that tabby-toed sock where I can't ever, I can't get into the camera. Here we go. You see, well, it's weird, isn't it, how this camera works? This is a sock where you have toes for you. I like to wear flip-flops a lot. So this is a Japanese sock, and you can see I've done it in these bright colors. And I don't know if you saw these when I was wearing them at the retreat or not, but
I probably did. Everybody was wearing wonderful socks that they had made, and I've never made a sock in my life.
Yeah, so this is fun because you can wear it with your flip-flops, and still your feet are. There's the thumb. It's like basically doing a mitten for your foot. You've got a place for your big toe, and then and this pattern is available on Ravelry, which is good. So is this one. This is a sock that I enjoyed making and designing. Again, it's hard to get it. You see here in this, well, there's the toe of the sock. You see the toe is in stripes. And the top of the sock is this, what I call garter stitch Intarsia. And, usually a sock starts either at the top and you work down, or it starts at the toe and you work up. In this particular sock, with all it'd be difficult to get all those colors in there in any of those methods. So what I did here was I cast on stitches provisionally, which is a technique that holds the stitches up for a little while, and I knitted in garter stitch. Those of you that knit, you'll know what I mean. I knitted in garter stitch around the sock this way, and then I grafted it together. so you can't tell where it's not sewn together, it's grafted. Then I picked up stitches at the bottom of that and knitted the foot down. So it creates a kind of an interesting sock and a little bit unusual. So I like to do things that are not just not just the norm.
I like that design. And I love the colors. I always respond to color.
Well, one of the nice
I
things
mean,
about this sock is you can use up your bits and pieces of leftover yarn. So it's a good way to do it. But that pattern is also available on Ravelry. So I have a number of patterns that I've done over the years that I've posted on Ravelry. So, and
well,
my name is Charles Gandy Knits on Ravelry.
I think you provided me with your Ravelry link, and
Right.
I will include that in the description as
Great.
well.
Great.
So in theory, you'll get some pattern sales out of this.
Well, if so, that's fine. If not, maybe people just enjoy seeing some of the crazy stuff I've done over the years.
Well, I think the best part is just basking in the warmth of your personality.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Thank you.
Because honestly, one of the best parts was listening to all of your stories, from travels, from knitting, from your professional life back in the day, everything, because you're just so much fun.
Well, thank you. I think the yarn or fiber community is a very gregarious community usually, and we all have a fiber in common, and it makes it easy to be enthralled by one another. So thank you for your comments.
So so you said you have that one exhibit coming up. What else is in the future for you?
Well, right now I am. That's pretty much it. I will be TKGA is now offering virtual conferences, and I will be teaching a class in that, and I think that's in May sometime. Anybody that's interested can look onto the TKGA website. I'm going to be teaching a class online about getting your work published and how you go about submitting work for publication and the ins and outs of that. It'll be a 90-minute online class.
I should take that myself, actually.
Yeah, well, that conference started last year was the first time we did it, and we were hopeful that we'd get 100 people. And I think we got 500 or 600 people from all over the world. So that's the beauty of this new life we're living because of the pandemic. We've opened it up to the world instead of to that. So we were very pleased with the turnout, and it's fun. So I'll be doing that. I'll be teaching at Campbell again in the spring. If anybody's interested in that class, I would suggest that you apply now because my classes unfortunately fill up very quickly. But I think that's in April or May. I'm doing several of these. I do a lot of these podcast interviews with various people across the time. So I have usually one of those, whatever. I work one day a week at a local yarn shop. Well, it's not too local. It takes me 45 minutes to get there. But I work on Saturdays at this wonderful yarn shop called Silver Threads and Golden Needles in Franklin, North Carolina. And it's a very good shop. So
I love they provided a bunch of prizes,
yes.
giveaway prizes at the retreat, and I got some amazing, beautiful yarn as one of those prizes. I also told my friend who lives in Franklin to go and see you, and I told her that when she introduces herself as a friend of mine, she'll either get a big hug or an ugly face from you.
She'll get a hug. She'll get a hug. So I look forward to seeing her.
So
I might put a plug in for Silver Threads and Golden Needles. They have a nice I should say we have a nice online store. So if you need fine yarn, you might look at their website and see if you can find something you like.
This is the yarn that I got. I love the color. It's
pretty, isn't it? Yeah.
Perfect.
They were very generous to give us 3 huge bags of yarn. So
and this particular bag of yarn, it was 5 hanks of this stuff.
Oh wow, you got it like a door prize then, or?
Yeah, and you know, the price tag is still on it. So
Yeah,
5 hanks at $29.
there you
That's
go. Yeah, it's a nice
it.
product.
I know. I'm not crying about it. I'll tell you that.
That's good. That's
And
good.
it's total of 1,090 yards altogether. I've already got plans for it. I don't know if it shows up well in the light, but it's sort of a deep, mm, uh, it's like a burgundy, deep red color.
It's nice. Yeah, it looks good. Well, congratulations.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, we had a good time. We learned a lot about yarn. When we went to the yarn shop, I mentioned that I really respond to color. So when we went to that yarn shop, I was like an overload because I had been to the men's retreat in New York in September, and I overspent on yarn that time. I was determined to underspend this time, and I actually did. Um, I came away with, I spent less than $25 on
Oh
yarn the
my
whole
goodness. Well,
weekend.
good for
Yeah,
you. Good for you.
but
I
some of
can't.
that
I
was,
can't say that. I spent a little more.
I was amazed at the amount of money that some people were dropping on yarn, and I'm going, I need gas money to get home.
Yeah, a lot of people spend a lot of money. So we went to, and Thursday morning, those of us that got there early, we went to another yarn shop as well, and people were buying there too. So yeah, the yarn shops like to see us come.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. And oh, that's interesting. You were there, right, when Jay was telling stories about his yarn shop in Nashville? Um,
I think I was, but
yeah, because it really his stories had to do more with customer service,
right,
and
right. Yeah, I was there for that. So,
yeah, so when we visited the yarn shop in Black Mountain, which I highly recommend, they were perfectly lovely to us.
oh, sure.
Yeah, some of us went there on Thursday morning instead of to the other shop. We
Mhm.
went there and then we went to the German restaurant for lunch.
Oh, great.
Um, and they were just lovely. And I showed them pictures of that I had on my phone of the things that I crocheted, because that's what I do.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
they
So
were they
that's
were
Don and Donna own that shop, a husband and wife team. So
yeah. It's called Black Mountain Yarns.
mhm.
I'll include a URL for that shop as well in the description.
Good. Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, so you, oof, I loved all of your travel stories. How is it that you have come to do so much traveling, in
You
your
know,
life?
as a kid, I've always had wanderlust, and I don't know when I got to the point that I could do it. I just it's a long story that I won't go into, but I decided to take a world cruise, which I did. It was 4 months, and I left from Fort Lauderdale and went around the world and ended up back in Fort Lauderdale. I think we went to 41 different ports of call, and I got hooked on it. So I signed up the next year to go instead of around the world this way. I went to Fort Lauderdale and I got on the ship and I went circumnavigated South America down to Antarctica and back up. That was 2.5 months. I stayed on this ship, and that very day we sailed across the Atlantic and we circumnavigated Africa. So that trip was 5 months. But I lived in Switzerland for 3 years, many years ago, and I don't know, it just got the travel bug just got into my system, and I love it. I would be traveling every day if I could afford it, but I've blown my wad on those two trips, so needless to say. But like I said earlier, I've been to all 7 continents and 100, and I think it's 140 countries, depending on how you count it. But obviously, there's still lots of places to go. So
Of
when I
course.
when I win the lottery or rob a bank, I'm gonna head out again.
Which do you think is more likely?
Winning the lottery, and that's obviously not. I'm
Huh,
not.
huh.
I'm not going to rob a bank, so I'll have to win the lottery. But
Yeah, when you do, call me.
yeah, exactly.
You actually set foot on Antarctica?
Yes, yes. You do it through.
Wow.
You do it through. You get off the ship and get onto what they call a John boat, which is like a huge raft, and take it over. You and the penguins and the seals, penguins and seals and whales. That's what you see. We
Oh
also
my.
we also went to. I think it's called. This is. I get confused. I should have looked it up, but I didn't know we are going to talk about this. I went to. I think it's St. George's Island. It's an island where Shackelford is buried. You know, the explorer whose ship um, got caught in the ice down in Antarctica, and he's buried on I think it's St. George's Island. That was a real experience because very few people get there, and the penguins were all over, and they looked at us like, "Who are you coming bothering us here?" But yeah, it was fun, and I encourage everybody to go to Antarctica. It's indescribable and it's majestic, and
I'm sure it's cold too.
well, we were there in February, which is summer, and we needed jackets, but it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, it was doable. Obviously, it was doable. I don't know that I'd want to be there in their winter time, but it was perfectly fine when I was there. So, and I saw lots of wonderful things that made it very special. Yeah, it was a cool place.
Wonderful. How did it come about that you lived in Switzerland for 3 years?
I was teaching at an American college in Lucerne. I was teaching interior design. It was a small private college, and I I ended up there as on the faculty of that school, where I taught interior design students. We had fashion design and interior design and other things. There were about 300 students there. I had 30 of them in the 3 years that I was there, and I've kept in touch with 15 of those people all these years later. So
Oh, how lovely.
yeah, it was great fun, and I've written a number of books, both in the interiors business and in knitting. But my first interiors book was written while I was living in Switzerland, and it was published by McGraw-Hill, and I'm convinced that it would never have been published by McGraw-Hill if I had sent the manuscript from Atlanta, Georgia. So, but sending it from Lucerne, Switzerland, an American living in Switzerland, got some attention that McGraw-Hill gave it. Plus, it also, Lucerne is in the middle of Europe, so I was able to travel and visit various designers and talk to their estates and to them. And I could never have done the research that I needed for that book had I not been living there. So it was a great experience.
So I'll have to look for your books. Yeah, because I love that sort of thing. I mean, I've always said that I have an eye for appreciation, but not so much for creation. Um, but that was before I started making my own patterns, and now
Well,
maybe
it's just exposure, isn't it? I mean, the more you're exposed, the more you learn. I have the first book was a more of a reference book on the history of contemporary furniture from 1860 to 1960. And then the second one, I was lucky enough to have a syndicated newspaper column for many years on design. And so I took those columns and put them into a book called Beautiful Interiors. And so that's what the second book was about, just different concepts of design and so forth, illustrated with some of my work and the work of other people as well.
So then, in terms of interior design, would you say you have a signature style?
Well, I think so. I mean, I had. It's been 20 years since I practiced design, but when I was busy, I had a business partner, and he and I kind of created what we called a classic contemporary style. It was a soft, comfortable, livable, stylistic contemporary thing. It wasn't. It was very. I'd like to think it was um, very user friendly, and we were lucky. We had work. We had jobs all over North America, and wonderful projects with wonderful clients. And I miss my clients, and I miss the big creative part. I don't miss the day in day out of the nitty gritty stuff about it, but I do miss my wonderful clients and that whole thing. But I've just changed focus now and I'm doing my knitting. So it's fine. And design is design, whether I'm designing an interior or whether I'm designing a sweater. It's still all about scale and rhythm and balance and proportion and color and texture and
Hmm.
all those same things that I studied in school, I apply to my knitting. So it's great. I really appreciate having the background I have in architecture because I think it's made my knitting career a stronger one.
So do those old clients still reach out to you for design help?
Not so much for design help because they know that I don't have the wonderful staff that I had to help me implement it, and they know that I'm kind of, if being in a design business is like being a little bit pregnant. You're either in the business or you're not. And so I'm not, but I still stay in touch with a lot of my clients. I have dinners with them, and I just texted some. I have clients. Just texted a California client this morning, and yeah, I stay in touch with them, but not to do work. I think some of them still maybe go back to my former office because my former partner is still in business, and I think maybe they do them. But no, I don't do any real design work for them because I don't have the office and the backup and the background and all that stuff. But we're still friends, which is nice.
That's lovely to have that kind of an ongoing relationship in and out of the office. Yeah.
It was nice.
So, so we've been talking for quite some time now.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Well, talking with you is so easy that the time just goes very quickly.
Well, thanks. But we don't want to use up your whatever. I don't know what your normal time frame for your shows are, but if you want to say goodbye, that's fine with me. So
No, no, not at all. Because some of these are like 35 minutes, and some of them are like an hour and a half. It just
well,
it
well,
varies depending
yeah.
upon the individual.
Well, we don't need to go an hour and a half, do we? So we can.
No, certainly not.
Yeah.
So, if we were to close right now, what would you want to leave our viewers with?
Well, I think maybe what I said earlier about people always coming up to me and asking, are they worried about how fast they knit or how, um, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I always say, I don't care how fast you knit, I care how well you knit. And I care about every stitch. And I get a little annoyed when I hear people say they made a mistake in something, but they left it because nobody's going to see it but them. Well, who's more important than you? So I rip out a lot of stuff. If I don't like what I've done, I take it out, and I guess I'm really involved in the process of creating things. And the finished product is important to me, but the process of creating it is equally, if not more, important to me. Like I said earlier, I like for things to be handmade and not homemade. So I care about every stitch, and I care about trying to perfect my craft. I learn something every week. I still study a lot, and I buy lots of books and things to see how other people do things, and then I try them out. And if it works for me, fine. If it doesn't, I put it aside. But I guess that's it. To just think more about um, what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it, and make that a goal as opposed to just churning out work that's filled with mistakes. I don't get that part of how people do that because they say, well, if they can't see it in a moving bus, they're never going to know it's there. Well, like I said earlier, I would know it's there, and every time I pick up that garment or something, I would see that mistake. So I don't let that happen anymore. And of course, I felt fallen trapped to that where I see there's a mistake and I keep thinking, oh, well, it's not too bad. And I keep going on and I get up 3 or 4 inches. Well, guess what? That mistake is still there. So now I've kind of quit doing that. If I see a mistake, I stop right then, take it out and fix it because I want it to be well done.
Do every Tuesday I do a Topic Tuesday live stream, and every now and then we come back to the topic of just how much of a perfectionist are you, and does it vary depending upon the project? And I am finding that the more I do, the more I become a perfectionist like you.
Well, I think that's
I,
right. Yeah.
I cannot most of the time, if I find a mistake, I'll have to go back and fix it.
Well, I admire you for that because it's
Well, yeah, in the past, I might have left it, or I might have said, "Oh, exactly, I'm the only one who will see it." But you know, one of our friends there was telling the story about. I think he had something published, and he had not noticed a mistake until he saw the photograph in the publication,
yeah,
and
that's
there.
always scary.
So, and of course, that haunted him. And he was probably the only one who noticed it, but that was enough.
Well, it's kind of if you look closely, there's hardly a magazine that comes out that I don't find a mistake in it, just like what you're talking about. And it's sometimes you wonder how does that get past the editors, but they're so busy just trying to get things out that they don't scrutinize it like we do. But
Well, even in the knitwear and crochet magazines, I'm not convinced that the editorial staff are experts. They're editors, not yarn people.
that's true. That's very true. Yeah,
Um,
it's rare to find somebody that has both expertise. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt there.
yeah, exactly. And if you're sending in a photo, or if you're sending in a garment for them to photograph, you're making a statement. And you're saying, this is what I do, and this is how I am presenting myself to the world. And, oops, there's a mistake. Got to redo it. Or,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, that happens. One time I was making a sweater, and it was something where you would use a smaller hook to start with, like, the hem, the waistband, and then you would switch to a larger hook to do the body. And I picked it up in the middle at some point and accidentally picked up the wrong size hook.
Mm-mm.
And then I did rows and rows and rows and rows and rows. And and I tried to convince myself it was okay, but it wasn't.
It wasn't, no.
It wasn't. I had to go back, and I don't know how much I wound up frogging, but yeah, that's the thing. And we always, we're all, you know, very. I hope that we're all very perfectionist with ourselves.
Well, I think it's a goal for us all to try to reach.
Yeah, well, yeah, perfection doesn't exist, but we want to do good work.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So isn't that what Garrison Keillor used to say on his radio broadcasts? Oh, what was it? It was like, be healthy, be good people, and do good work.
Yeah, right.
Something like that. Act like a grown up.
That's good.
Basically.
Good.
Because God knows I don't do in the rest of my life.
Well, I just remember handmade and not homemade. That's my kind of mantra on that.
I like that slogan. I'm gonna have to. My sister does counted cross stitch. I'm gonna have to get her to make a sampler with that saying.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah. Good.
So I think that would be great. Anyway, so
well, thanks for asking me to join you.
This has been a complete pleasure, and the time has just sailed away.
Well, it was lovely to meet you at the retreat, and I hope I'll see you again at future retreats. So
I hope so too, and thank you so much for joining me. And to everybody who has been watching and enjoying Charles, I would also say to like, subscribe, comment, share, all the standard YouTube crap, and keep coming back. And thank you so much. I'm gonna.